when they say they have about 8 dungeons, they actually have 32 dungeons, is what they said. So that's quite a bit interesting, and they are meant to be tough for an organized group. So, do you see these dungeons? They act like there's multiple ways to do it, but do you see these dungeons possibly getting still a bit repetitive, even if there are different types to it, different objectives might occur, it might change here and there a little bit? Or do you think players can actually see these 8 different dungeons as 32 different types?
Well, enough characters maybe, but having not played the game myself, I'm not really sure how much you can alter a dungeon. Sure, there's different options you could go, but I'm just curious, are you going to be like collapse it in one part and unlock a whole other area? Or is it just going to be the map looks different, the mobs may be kind of different, and then also will the loot tables be different because of that? Those are like the main questions in mind. So once the game actually comes out, I could probably give a better opinion on what that will be like.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually seen any too much of the dungeon instances going on, which is probably a good thing. There's only 8. They probably don't want to show us too much about the dungeons. But if they actually do change enough to where something caves in, different routes appear, different experiences, maybe there's different bosses to fight inside of it, it could be pretty interesting. And I think they like the idea that when you go in with different people, or each time you go in, you may find a new way to fight the experience, so it's not always going to be do this first, do that second, do this third, you've completed the dungeon. So then we go into character customization. We talked about this a bit more, but the big key things that we found out yesterday is that not only can you combine items you want to combine, but there are over 400 dyes in this game. Or not over, but there is 400. She has the developer, the same person who made Savari, made all the dye system. She created 400 dyes, all individually named. And on top of that, each item you have has up to 3 dye channels. It just looks like it's going to be pretty big. You can save your palettes for other characters or team colors and guild colors. I'm assuming there's going to be a way to send your palette to someone else. But 400 dyes. We saw a little bit, so I'm going to guess that means that you can find dyes out in the open world. And that's going to be part of the economy now. 400 dyes is pretty big. What are your thoughts on the dye system now?
Well, if you can loot them, then that would be amazing, because as I said in episode 1, dyes were a big part of my initial economy, getting that initial platinum built up. But 400 is quite a lot, so I wonder how rare it's going to be, because before the basic amounts, and you had the black dye, and that was the really expensive dye. But 400 changes everything. It could definitely be part of an economy if there was a super rare type, but not having seen 400 different types of dyes, it'd be hard to tell which one people are going to value more than the other.
Yeah, I always think that 400 might be a little bit too big. You're gonna, especially if you're doing team colors or guild colors, and you have it set up differently. You're not using the normal die sets. Then you're gonna have the problem where you're gonna have to go out there and either buy all the dies for your guild, buy all the dies for your team, go out and find it. And is the person gonna feel left out or kicked out of their guild if they can't manage to buy or find the dies needed that aren't in the normal ones?
I'm sure their guild would be able to have a stockpile or something. And 400 dyes, it could be like bright yellow, darker yellow, slightly darker yellow. So we'll see. I did hear they have like lightning blue and stuff like that, though, Crayola type colors. So only time will tell.
We're gonna get in there and we're gonna have the electric blue, lightning blue, light blue, dark blue, sky blue. We're just gonna start saying different things. Just gonna be like, okay, I can't tell the difference between these 5. We're just going to choose from the beginning to the end. All right. Let's go ahead and get past character customization. All right. So they brought in, this is the brand new information about the guilds that they discussed with us. So rethinking guilds as social networks. That's how they decided to introduce this. They're rethinking guilds as social networks. Your account can belong to as many guilds as you want. You can switch what guild your character represents whenever you want. The guild only sees if you are online, if you are representing them at that time. And this kind of brings in the idea that people can join both a PvE-focused guild and a PvP-focused guild and not be stuck down to one. Now, I see benefits and positives from this one, but it looks like you're already thinking. So, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, that's just I didn't hear about this yet, so that's new information for me even. That's actually extremely interesting. Uh, I like that idea actually because now, as you said on the slide, you can be part of a PvP and a PvP guild, but also there's been a lot of times that I'm a raid leader or something like that, and I can't really leave guilds to go play with my friends and have my own like friend guild, and I have to make an alt. And so this is also going on the idea you can scale down, you can be part of their guild, you can basically be wherever you want. The one thing that does raise the mind is that are people going to force you to be exclusive, and can they know that you're exclusive? It's definitely a lot of things, but more than negatives, I would say there are positives in this, and that's definitely something I have never even seen before. So that's pretty innovative thinking, I think.
It's definitely interesting, and yeah, it's going to depend on how much in depth you can see. I know they said that you won't be able to tell online or not. You can even go down to the option and not represent any guild, is what they said. But unlike social networks, where they want as many people as they can get into it, and they do want to take from the others, I'm going to see guilds start being exclusive. You may only join one other guild, or you cannot join any other PvE guild, no other PvP guild. We're going to start seeing that, and are people going to start spreading themselves so thin that they don't know who to play with? Um, we're going to have to find out. I mean, I like the idea in general. I've always wanted to be able to play with different groups of people. I have about 3 or 4 different team speaks that I jump on right now and have loaded up at the same time. Play FPS games with one, play other games with another. So it's gonna be something new, interesting, exciting, wary. People are gonna freak out when they get this information here in the next week and start posting about it. And we're going to see another big change in gaming with the guild structure that most games do not have.
Hmm.
And they continued on to the guilds after this, and this is going to affect the whole representation thing. They said they wanted to create a reason to be in guilds, like which most games have done nowadays. As you do things representing your guild, the guild gains influence. Typical setup we see with guild perks for storage, flags that give experience boosts, etc. Something unique, they have a guild calendar in game to organize events. That's something you can unlock. And you can even to the ability to where you can fly your guild's flag from a keep in world versus world versus world to show your guild's identity, to show that you're participating in that open world environment. And they said they have a lot more for the future details as future details are finalized. So this is a typical system. WoW's got it. They grind faction points or guild points or whatever. Go out and kill 1 million of this, and you get this many points, something like that. I don't know if it's as intense as that. Honestly, I kind of hate the system in both those games because it's a whole bunch of grind system. Do this ridiculous crap that you don't want to, do this that you don't want to, in order to just get your guild leveled up. Then when the guilds are the higher levels, no new guilds can start out because everyone wants to join a guild that has all the perks already. So it's actually, I feel like, a bigger problem as you go down the road. Fun in the beginning, but if it's hard to unlock stuff, a year or two down the road, nobody's going to want to start a new guild and have to deal with everything. What are your thoughts?
We basically just stated my own thoughts on that. It would no people have tried doing this before and they end up changing their system because the achievements or the not achievements I should say, but the bonuses of having one guild for having done more things and being an older guild. It's just a really huge pain in the butt to start a new guild, try to get your people together, and this kind of forces the idea that initial guilds will almost have a monopoly, especially since you can join multiple guilds. So I don't know how I feel on that, but we'll see how that turns out whenever they release the game.
Yeah, I have a feeling what we're going to see at the start of the game is guilds massively inviting, just like you do see in every game, but just to earn the points real quick for the influence points. Join us, help us gain our influence points, and then you're going to start seeing advertisements. We've unlocked tier 3 of the guild. We've unlocked tier 4 of the guild. We've got these perks. And it's gonna become down to what guild has perks that decides who you join as opposed to who's in the guild. I mean, you could have the biggest jerk in the guild, and yet you joined it because it has perks that nobody else had that you wanted to join. I don't know. We'll see down the road again. Hasn't released yet. All right, now we got to the Q&A section of this. All right, so they brought some people up to start talking, and let's see what we got. All right. So the first question that was asked by a fan there, a person watching, was how are experience and rewards determined from multiple people attacking? They said because the idea was if multiple people attack, does the experience get split? They said there's a minimum thresholds for damage to qualify for rewards. There are not varying levels of rewards. You either qualify or do not for full experience in loot roll. However, a full event system has different levels of contribution. So it looks like what we're looking at here is, in general, going out and fighting things, regular events, there are no quest systems, the regular dynamic events will, if you meet a certain threshold, you're going to get the full experience, you're going to get your own individualized loot roll. So that goes back to the no need for the competitive scene thing. And they even said that it has a minimum damage threshold, so one whack of your sword or one attack is not going to do enough damage most likely to qualify you, so you can't just go around and hit every single mob in order to gain a massive amount of experience around you real quick. And then they said in dynamic events there is a contribution system which has varying tiers, and that how much you contribute into that huge dynamic event chain and stuff will determine your rewards in there. Do you see this as a good thing, a bad thing? Does it solve griefing? What?
I'm actually being extremely distracted by the chat right now from all the players speaking, but actually I don't really have much to say on that currently right now. It would just multiple players attacking. We'll see how that works out. I don't think it will really be that big of an issue, honestly.
Yeah, I mean it's a decent solving to the griefing situation. You can't go around and just hit everything, so there's no way you can really cheat it that much, and you just go in and participate. Join people, fight with them, be a community. Stop hating on each other. That's what it sounds like to me.
Definitely make leveling and questing, I shouldn't say questing, but dynamic eventing, if you want to call it that, it'll be much more less stressful is what I'm going for there, and much more enjoyable, I think, personally. But some people, they are griefers and they enjoy griefing. So if that's how they are, then I'm sorry, but that's not the way the game is headed towards.
Yeah, or it's not going to be a griefing environment that we can join anymore, it looks like. So let's move on. Oh, as far as chat, you might have to start annoying it. It's hard to keep up with that chat.
It is extremely hard.
All right, I got some crazy pictures for our people that are talking and stuff. So people are lazy. What are you doing to incentivize people to not min/max their characters? That was the question being asked. Their response was pretty simple. Most of the time, people really actually just want to play with their friends. There are not really builds that are better or not. You will want to coordinate after you make your team, not before. So they basically said minning maxing is not what they think people are going to want to do in the game, and that coordinating stuff before doesn't really matter. It's after you've designed your group, you look at the classes you have, and then you coordinate your game plan from there. I think it goes into their whole dynamic attitude with the whole thing, setting out the dynamic events, but even down to your fights are dynamic, depending on who's around you, what you've got available to you. So, do you think people are going to still try to min-max?
Personally, like you said, most people are lazy, but there will always be min-maxers. Maybe not in the sense as for taking down a boss. People might find a combination for a certain boss that tends to be easier, like less, closely watching, maybe more guardians or maybe more elementalists that are ranged. However, I can definitely see people hunting down items. Guild Wars 1 had greens, and people wanted the best enhancements, but those aren't really necessarily hard to come by. But finding what you had to get was definitely one thing, and usually that's available on the forum. Someone's going to find it. They're going to say, if you want this to come out, like your DPS will be this much higher. That's always going to exist in every game.